Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to not daily Trade the Chain Crypto Up. Today is Trading Rebellion with CJ and Monty. This is the first ever session where CJ and Monty and myself are now an official team, all under the Trade the Chain roof. So, round of applause. Welcome our newest analysts to the fold. They're obviously much better than I am, smarter than I am, and we are very happy to have them on board and not playing for the other team anymore. So we are now one giant happy family, and we are excited to bring some more tools, services, and a much more robust community to our current members and our future members. So a lot of exciting stuff going on. If you're not in the Trade the Chain community, you should definitely pop in there, see what's going on. You can still get a 14-day free trial, try everything out with no risk to yourself and see what we have going on. So let's go ahead and dive in to the charts. We are in the second week of July, second week of the quarter. And we are, facing some gross flat price action, and things should heat up in the future as, CPI is Wednesday. We have PPI Thursday. We have FOMC on the 26th, so shouldn't be a boring month, but we'll have to see how significant price action moves from now to then. So what we're looking at today at the gear up, we are at a $1.18 trillion market cap. Average sentiment across all cryptos is neutral, but should mention that Bitcoin and Ethereum sentiment are pushing a little bullish. So definitely hopeful for the bulls out there. We got some topsy-turvy bullish and bearish coins as well. Some interesting ones that I think Monty's going to discuss. Uni setting up for a potentially good trade coming up, and then not surprising that we're seeing some of these name coins or coins that we haven't heard of in a long time in the bearish zone. It should be worth mentioning that stablecoin exchange flows as we move to the 24-hour period. Definitely even for the most part. We see a minus 100 million early, and then another 110 million coming in. So mostly flat on this, no significant change. And we do know that stablecoin net flows can definitely impact price if there is more money leaving or joining. And right now, not too much of a change. And I, personally have a bit of a feeling that the summer months are going to be a little bit flat. I don't think we're going to see too much money putting on or off exchanges unless something crazy happens in the news cycle. But we will, of course, keep close tracking this for all of you guys. Now, the big news stories that we're going to discuss very shortly are, the first one is top executives at Coinbase sell coin stock, and coin is at an interesting position that CJ is going to go over for us later on in the show. We also have, as I mentioned, CPI numbers that are expected to come in positively, and meaning less than expected, which would likely mean inflation is cooling off a little bit. And then we have PPI on Thursday, which is the producer side of inflation, whereas CPI is the consumer side of inflation. And PPI seems to maybe want to rise on Thursday, which could throw a wrench into any bullishness on the heels of Wednesday. So let's go ahead and start with the Coinbase selling. And CJ, do you mind pulling up your charts? Because I believe you were charting Coinbase before we got on here. The stats are that Brian Armstrong sold $5.8 million worth of Coinbase stock on the 6th of July, so 4 days ago, along with 3 other Coinbase executives selling up to $1 million each. So we've got $5 to $10 million worth of Coinbase selling. I mean, it's not Tesla, it's not Elon selling $6 billion worth of Tesla, or Tim.
I was going to say, is that it? Only single digit millions?
Only so for Coinbase, yes, he's only single digit millions. I don't think they're extremely flush with how the current price action is performing. Brian Armstrong still has I should mention, a boatload of stock, but we do know that typically, and if you read the TTC community or the TTC newsletter, we pointed out a couple of times where CEOs have sold, and they typically mark a top, or at least a local top, in reference to Tim Cook selling $400 million worth of Apple stock. Apple didn't reach a new high for 6 months. When Elon sold $6 billion worth of Tesla, Tesla dropped 50% over the next 6 months. So, CEOs really do know how to time the top. And if I'm looking at your chart, CJ, we are nearing resistance as well as 2023 highs. And that is typically when you should get a little bit cautious in terms of your previous buys. So what are you looking at in this chart? And does, Brian Armstrong and executives selling Coinbase stock worry you about your bullish trade that you were discussing a couple weeks back?
Yeah, well, I guess I should first start by following up by saying I'm completely out. And I did sell a call spread on Coinbase today, just in small amounts. But this is one that I'll definitely look to get back in. I still think that even if I'm wrong on this idea and we continue higher, potentially, I can trade it from, maybe $100 to $200 or $300 or catch that move. So I'm not really worried about price running off away from me in the short term. I've also seen a lot of technicians on Twitter talk about this being an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which to me is always kind of weird because it's like it's already up 50% in the last month. It's gone straight up. So is now the time to really be getting completely bullish on it when we're at resistance. So, you look at the previous other two times when we've hit these levels here. Check out the momentum and volume. We had a spike in volume here. Ultimately, that was the pinnacle here as well. And then when looking at the MACD,
what is the indicator that you have on the bottom, the Christmas colored one?
Yeah, this is the MACD just without the intersection line. So it's just showing pure momentum. So
and it does appear that, when that reaches, I don't know exactly what number that is, maybe, high twos, close to 3 on your, Christmas color chart, I should say, your MACD. It does appear that does typically mark a local top, or at least a relaxation in price action.
Yeah, especially when you look at the higher time frame. I think it's really nice to see, well, maybe not nice, but you see bearish divergences within price making higher highs and lower highs in terms of momentum. So, didn't go very far out, had an expiration of, the 21st. I think it was like the 77, 78 spread that I sold. But overall, I'm looking to buy some stock back overall in I should say hoping to buy some stock back around the 70 to 60 level, kind of in the golden channel. I think we used to refer to this back in the day as the honey hole. But overall, I think when you look at that declining volume, that lack of momentum, the fact that insiders are selling shares after a 50% rally in less than a month, there's really no reason for me to be long up here. So I'll be looking to get back into it. And we can talk more about this too once we get into traditional markets with like NASDAQ and ES. But I think if we see a broader pullback across equities, coin will get hit and it might create a nice buying opportunity.
I agree. Now, just to kind of ask the extrapolated question, throw it at Monty because, we track Bitcoin and Ethereum, very closely. And I know it's sacrilegious to short Bitcoin. We definitely try to focus on the alts more so. But if coin is, potentially facing a pullback or we're in the area where we might see a pullback, do we think that might also be a forward indication that crypto prices may pull back a little bit as well?
I don't think it'll be too much of an effect. Crypto is obviously a global asset class, and as a result, Coinbase is significant. There's no doubt about that, but significant enough to, pull down the price of Bitcoin? I don't think so. If you look at their recent correlation over the last 3 months, there really hasn't been that much of one. Coinbase has actually shown signs of strength when Bitcoin has been showing signs of weakness and vice versa. So I don't necessarily think that we'll see a direct, sell-off as a result of this selling from Brian Armstrong. Although I do think it does kind of mark the top for Coinbase like it has with so many other, stocks. When the, CEO sells, it tends to at least mark the interim top, like you had pointed out earlier in the show. So that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. Not enough, stopping power to bring down Bitcoin, but certainly enough to bring down Coinbase a little bit.
Interesting. Okay, so let's move on. We also, I want to bring up CPI, considering this is the core kind of inflation metric that we have, or it's actually the last inflation metric that we'll get for as it pertains to the consumer before FOMC. And we all know FOMC. I think the market's 80-90% predicting a 25 basis point rate hike on the 26th. And so I don't know how much, a super positive CPI will change that, considering the Fed was telegraphing that even after PCE came in pretty decently. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what the outlook is from Fed governors after this comes in. But, if we do get a much lower CPI number, I mean, we're talking, 3%. I think, and if I look at my projected numbers here on my Market Watch chart, yeah, so 3.1% is what Market Watch says, and Wall Street Journal is projecting 3%, and that is from a 4%. Now, of course, core is only projected to come down 5 from 5.3, but these are significant drops in the grand scheme of things. So are you guys looking, if we get the numbers that we expect, meaning, they're at or less than expectations, do you guys feel a little bit of a bullish pop in the middle of the week? And are there any charts that you feel, may reflect that better than others?
I mean, it's hard to predict the outcomes of these events. I do have some charts in terms of positioning within major equity indices, but I can probably just talk broadly without actually showing the charts. I thought there was edge going long earlier in the year because you had such a high amount of shorts within NASDAQ and ES. And when you have, news catalysts, sometimes those will be kind of like I said, like a catalyst to propel price out of the asymmetries within that positioning. So right now, it's tough for me to do anything before this because there really isn't any asymmetry within long or short positioning within NASDAQ or ES. They're both very neutral. In fact, they're actually closer and almost giving short signals. And retail speculators are basically flat NASDAQ right now. They're a little bit net short, the most net short the least net short that they've been in a very long time. So that kind of makes me a little bit bearish. You might get a little interim daily pop on this thing, but I would be looking for a news failure on these particular events. Like, for instance, let's say we have a low CPI print, price pops and then sells off to close the day. Like, that's news that should be bullish, that's propelling the market higher. If it's unable to do that, then that's a great short entry, in my opinion, because the market should be doing something, but it's not. That's how you trade news.
It's a good point. And I guess just to further the question, just because you brought up NASDAQ, and that brought up something that I saw across the news wire this morning that I did not notice late last week, but the NASDAQ actually changed up a little bit of a few of their weights of I believe the top 7 stocks in the NASDAQ. And that was obviously to kind of pull away from how much those 7 stocks were impacting the Qs or the NASDAQ index, however you want to look at it. Does that change your outlook? Because we do know NASDAQ has obviously been outperforming S&P 500 for some time. So, and especially tech has obviously gained the benefit of whatever the heck is going on in this economic and macro cycle. But obviously that is a shift, and that could change some opinions or, the attractiveness of a Q's trade. So is that impacting your outlook at all, or is this kind of a red herring and better to focus on other data points?
I did see that, and I do agree the NASDAQ is leader, primarily because it's just got a little bit higher weighting in some of those larger names. But I mean, I think that is the reality of late stage capitalism of what we're in, is like 7 companies, can make up an indice. In terms of the weighting, I think that's something that people will just kind of look back on and say, oh, well, clearly at the time it was bearish, or clearly at the time it was bullish. It'll be kind of a hindsight bias type of thing. At the start of the morning, market was acting as if it didn't like it. We had things like Meta selling off, and Google as well. But we've kind of rallied back to the end of the day. So I don't have that much to say about it, or that much of an opinion about it, Monty. I will refer to you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, and it was a necessary move, especially after the price action we've seen over the last, 3 months here. It's been crazy. I mean, first of all, just take a look at Nvidia. Like that stock alone has become one of the largest stocks in the world. Um, and I think all of this, or at least not all of it, but most of this has to do with all the hype around AI, everything, and all the applications that could plausibly have. And as a result, we saw stocks like Nvidia massively rally. I don't think that, necessarily the rebalancing of the queues is going to have too much of an effect. But at the end of the day, I do think it's actually a good thing because we can't just wake up every day and rely on these big names to push us higher. That's essentially pointless, right? What's the point of having the other, you know, 295 names in this index if we're only looking at the top 5 anyway? Because those are the only ones that matter. So yeah, I think some rebalancing is necessary. But like CJ said, in a world of late stage capitalism, you typically see this sort of thing where the biggest companies horizontally and also vertically integrate. And we've seen both of those things happen over the last 3 months with companies acquiring, various AI companies and implementing them into their corporate strategy. So, yeah, I think this was a necessary thing. And, you know, CJ's right. In hindsight, people will look back and be like, "Oh, obviously this was a bearish catalyst. Obviously, this was a bullish catalyst." I think it's bullish, but um, not like overwhelmingly bullish or anything like that. But I do think it was a necessary move based on what we've seen in the last 3 months.
They should just keep
All
the
right.
best performers in, and then just toss away the bad performers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not a
here
bad
are the
idea. Do it like the leagues of
We'll call
soccer,
it the prize fighter ETF. That's
or
what.
like the Premier League, or like the Bundesliga or the Spanish La Liga. The bottom 3 teams, they get moved down to the league. If you're not performing, you go down. Top 3 teams from the league below get moved up. Um, but in all
That's how we keep
seriousness, like
competition.
yeah, like that. We need competition. We need it because right now in the queues, there's not any. There's 5 names that are dictating the entire direction of that index.
Yep. And if you're curious, hearing us talk and we didn't name the stocks are Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, Google, which is Alphabet, Meta, and then Amazon. So those are your magnificent seven. I guess we're just pulling new monikers out for stock groups monthly at this point. So
I like it. I'm for more categories of assets being named after Westerns. There'll be a hateful eight of like horrible names.
We need memes. That's what's going to bring us to all-time highs. Moving forward from CPI and kind of bringing it back to what CJ mentioned about a news failure, this has the potential to kind of be a news failure event in terms of, a bullish day from a CPI print rolling right into a bearish day from a PPI print. And just, I think that the core focus is on the bottom listicle on this chart, as it kind of already covers what we talked about in terms of CPI. But PPI is producer inflation. So just to put it simply, so CPI is consumer inflation. So if producers are expected to basically pay 0.4% on average for their materials and services, that is not positive. Although it is, impacting consumers positively in the grand scheme of June inflation data, PPI rising may imply further inflation on the consumer down the road, because obviously if the producer is paying more for their goods and services, they are going to pass that on to the consumer. So just because it looks a little bit better for the consumer in June may, indicate from PPI that it may be a little bit worse for the consumer in July and or August and continuing. So this is very much something to watch out for, in my opinion, because like CJ mentioned, if we do get a bullish boost on CPI from getting the numbers we want, if we get the numbers that are currently expected for PPI, that could be a sell event. So the way that I'm currently looking at the market, and we're going to go over Bitcoin, ETH, and some of the some major stocks and indices in a second, but how I'm just thinking about the market today moving into the week is hopefully we get a bit of a rise on Tuesday into Wednesday on expectation of CPI numbers. Hopefully Wednesday is bullish on a CPI beat. And then Thursday, we flip shorts on a CPI miss and ride that into the weekend and end up at the exact same price that we're at, today, or that we started at this morning. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But let's go ahead and dive in to some charts and figure out what we're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and share my Bitcoin chart first. And of course, always have my little lines that we have for the TTC community. We are just rubbing up against the 30,350 level, which I told the TTC community is the level that I want to see broken for longs to come into vogue. If we can break above 30,350, first stop, in my opinion, would be the previous week's VWAP, hanging out right at 30.6. And then the next stop, in my opinion, would be the resistance that we have battled with for quite some time at 31K, if we can get above 30.6. Now, if the current level fails, meaning 30,350, I would expect us to drop back, probably to the low end of this range, which is sitting right down here. But, if we break below this VWAP, I think there's a pretty good chance the weekly VWAP right here, which is sitting at 30.2, just under 30.2. If we break below that, we probably try and grab these lows, which are hovering right around 29.7. Maybe we get 29.5. So I'm torn on price action. You heard me kind of say my thesis of what I'm expecting heading into Wednesday, but today is Monday, tomorrow's Tuesday, and I prefer not to trade when there's a lot of indecision or we're just sitting in a very tight range. Because I think, if you're sitting in a very tight range, you're really only able to play a breakout unless you really know how to make money in $100, $200 range. So if you want to break out, that's probably going to be a news-driven event, or leading into some news, which is why I'm hoping that heading into tomorrow's session, we get a little bullishness, and then maybe CPI kind of sends us up here, and then PPI kind of sends us back down here. So that's kind of my ideal trade situation for this week. But I'll stop there because I know CJ and Monty may have a bit of a different idea than myself. So Monty, how about we bring your chart up?
Sure thing.
There we go. Oh,
there
we
go. Okay, so let's start with Bitcoin, right? One thing that you'll notice right away, and this is something that I wanted to bring to your attention, is just kind of the lack of volatility that we've had in recent days here. In the last 10 days, we've been particularly, sideways. This is not typical for Bitcoin. We often see, moves in either direction. And when you see the Bollinger Bands pinching together like this sort of pincer action with these blue lines in the Bollinger Bands, it's typically indicative of a big move coming. And I think we're going to get one. I think it will probably coincide with the CPI print on Wednesday. And unfortunately, if we do get those, negative numbers, then I think we could plausibly see Bitcoin fall and retrace some of these positive gains that we made, back in the end of June here, June 20th, June 21st, those days of overwhelmingly positive price action could plausibly be retraced, because whenever you see this is like another example here where you have the Bollinger Bands essentially kind of forming this pincer formation here, indicative of just a general lack of vol. And when that happens, like I said, there's usually fireworks in one direction or the other. So what you need to consider is, which way do I think that this one is going to break? And given, the overall macro conditions, given what you've talked about, Nick, in terms of the potential for CPI to be a negative catalyst, I am kind of leaning a bit bearish this week on Bitcoin in particular. And although I'm leaning bearish on Bitcoin, I do think there are some altcoins that have the potential to show signs of positive price action. But with ETH as well, right? We're seeing a very similar thing. It's actually even more prevalent if we take a look at the hourly chart, breaking out here a little bit. But see, we had this sort of pincer movement here, and then a break to the upside. So the volatility, still isn't that crazy. We are breaking out here on ETH. If there were a time to buy, breaking out above the blue Bollinger Bands typically isn't a great trading strategy. If you buy above the upper band, it tends to pull back. So with ETH, I'm kind of just waiting a little bit. We had talked about it earlier about how, one great thing about where ETH's at right now, although it's moved significantly since then, is that it's sitting right at that critical, or right near this critical 1865 level. And this level is highly critical for ETH and has been on multiple occasions, going all the way back to, what is this? June of 2023 here. This is the 21st. You can see how flat we've been essentially this entire time. Like, we had some interim volatility, but overall, this level is where we've seen the most volume at price. So I'm watching this level closely for ETH, this 1865 level. And if you were to enter a trade now, use this as a plausible stop loss, or wait, because we're above the Bollinger Bands, for a pullback to this level. Once we bounce, then think about potentially buying and taking on a bit of a bullish position. Now, last thing I'll say before I pass it over to CJ or Nick, whoever is next. Oh, wow. One thing that we had discussed in the community, Nick, is Uniswap and the recent price action that we've seen there. This one is looking particularly interesting. And one thing that we talked about on, I believe, the last episode of Trading Rebellion was these wicks of distribution here. And we were seeing some strong distribution continue day after day of just, price trying to go up and then getting sold into, trying to go up and then getting sold into. Not only that, but we have diminishing bullish volume as well. Now, today plausibly could be a turning point, and let me talk about why. Nick, this is something you shared with me in the Trade the Chain Discord, and this is the sentiment chart. Now, take a look at this chart here and note how spikes in sentiment tend to precede spikes in price. And if we actually look at an hourly picture from a daily perspective, you'll see that, once we get that flip from negative to positive, that's a great indication to buy. And it's not just this is the best example, right? But we saw it here as well. This was a nice little example where we flipped from negative to positive, and price saw a substantial increase following that flip. And now that we're flattening out on the sentiment here, this negative sentiment on the hourly perspective, if we do come back up and flip positive, I'm going to be looking to buy, because I think that this thing can continue to run. You can see a clear trend establishing here. And Nick, you pointed it out on that 7-day chart. I mean, look at this, like the peaks of the sentiment, right? And this is starting to turn down a little bit. On the 7-day perspective, like from a daily perspective, this is when we're reaching like a fever pitch and people are talking about it the most. That's usually an indication of like, okay, this is when people are going to start entering the trade. You saw it here, right? We saw the peak in sentiment and then followed by spike in price, peak in sentiment followed by spike in price. Peak in sentiment here, I think we'll see a spike in price for uni. So that's a trade that I really like. And in fact, I think we could plausibly see a turnaround here today on this doji candle. We're already seeing some nice volume. Still have 5.5 hours left to go on today's daily candle. If we close looking like this, I think that looks pretty good for a buy and a potential move back up towards the $6 level. So that's what I'm trading right now. So I'm slightly bearish Bitcoin, but also a little bit more bullish ETH and Uniswap as well, just based on what we're seeing from a technical perspective with those Bollinger Bands, those lack of volatility, and also the sentiment for Uniswap. I think all those paint a picture that we could plausibly see some positive price action. So I'll be taking a little bit of a shot with some long plays on those two.
Yeah, and just to kind of pick up on the ETH conversation, looking at ETH BTC, I wouldn't say it looks beautiful. I will say, if it recaptures this 0.062 level, we could see a little bit of relief for ETH, in at least July. And I would say, getting back up to these highs would probably be the target. I'd probably say right here, like mid 063 would probably be a good target if you are bullish ETH compared to Bitcoin. But let's also check out what's RSI doing. So we don't have any bearish or bullish divergence. Check the shorter time frame. Yeah, so nothing really beautiful other than the fact that it made a higher low. I'm sorry, I keep jumping around on these time frames, but this is a higher low right here. And if price does make it up here and breaks this high, then it would also be a higher high, which would be the ideal market structure to then continue higher. So, it's something to work. It's not a trade that I'm willing to take. Like, I'm not longing ETH and shorting Bitcoin just yet. But if we break above this 0.062 level, then I think the trade becomes a little bit more attractive. What do you think, Monty?
Yeah, I agree, Nick. We talked about that level a lot, that 0.062 level. And you're right. This chart doesn't look too great. Like, I don't expect it to, make a move back up to the top of that descending triangle or anything like that. No sort of strength like that. But like you said, a move back up, towards where we were, just a week ago. Yeah, right in that range. That's something I could definitely see, happening here this week. And is part of the reason why I'm a little bit more bullish ETH than I am Bitcoin. We kind of are putting in this little bit of a higher low here, and that in conjunction with the fact that we're looking actually pretty risk on as I look at the charts now. Like Uniswap is breaking out here a little bit, and I think ETH looks like it could outperform Bitcoin in the next 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, they're both revving right now. Like we literally talked about it, and now it's happening. So that is always something I will never complain about the charts doing as I instructed. But just another thing that I'd love to point out, I feel like this gets overlooked all the time, and to me it seems so simple. Like it shouldn't be this simple, but sometimes it is. And anytime you have a RSI trend that goes peak to trough and then breaks the basically the downtrend or the uptrend, depending on how you're trading it. I could draw the same, exact type of situation for an uptrend and then trading it down. But, this RSI system I've been using for years. And although it is a little bit decayed, considering, it did already pull back a little bit, as long as it doesn't break this low end and it stays above, you would typically expect the RSI to eventually return back to oversold. Now, whatever price that is, it could literally be the highs that Monty and I discussed. But, typically, if you do see this type of formation, eventually it will head higher before it heads lower, typically. And as you can see here, the low end of where that RSI stomp was also the low of where this price action was. And then it obviously moved all the way up here. So just let me consider if you're looking for alternative trading methods. But actually, let's just flip back to the ETH chart really quick, just because it does look pretty. And if we're looking at this is ETH dominance. I was like, why does it look so pretty? So let's move back to the 1 hour. And so now, we're breaking above the level that I listed out for ETH, which I think was 1880, which was just above these highs. So we're definitely in the category of moving towards 1900, in my opinion, as long as we can stay above this 1880 level. And then, of course, get above 1990, and you're talking about 1930. And it's still important to consider, in my opinion, what we discussed. We could see just gradual rise into Tuesday, maybe a big spike on CPI, and then we just end up rolling over. So I wouldn't get too crazy bullish yet, but if we start stalling around 1975, then I'll probably start throwing a couple of shorts at the board. So CJ, what are you looking at?
Maybe mind if I toss a question to you guys real quick?
Go ahead.
Looking at some of these moves, like we're seeing some really strong moves across the board here today. Binance coin up 5%, Bitcoin Cash up 4.5%. Now ETH is up 1.3% on the day. How much of this do you attribute to people actually getting long, and how much of this do you think is shorts being forced to cover on the back of positive price action?
This is the wrong. I thought I was going to pull up my little funding chart. I must have it on another screen. In my opinion, let's take a look at S&P 500 really quick. So obviously S&P 500 a lot weaker than Bitcoin, unable to break above its resistance level that we defined at 4440, and stalling around here. It definitely could still rise, but in my opinion, if we just look at the charts. So the one thing about Bitcoin that I think everybody should always consider, and going back to kind of Monty and CJ's mantra of never shorting Bitcoin, if you are shorting Bitcoin or think it's going to head lower and it continues to form dojis at recent lows, stop shorting it. Just stop. Like if you miss the trade, I'm like, DM me, send me vitriol, cuss words, whatever. But just walk away from the trade, because if you were shorting this and it did this 2 times in a row with RSI moving higher, just get out of the trade. Like whether or not it breaks this resistance level, which we're going to watch it, have struggle. It's likely to move higher if it has, any type of tweezer action. That's just any time on any time frame. If you see tweezers on the Bitcoin chart, get out of the trade if you're trading in the opposite direction. That's just how I look at things. So I don't really have a specific answer on why we're seeing a little bit of bullishness, but if I had to guess, if I just, I was thinking yesterday, I was building market thesis based on the CPI data that I saw, and I completely missed PPI. So I jumped into TTC, I jumped in a couple other trade groups talking about it, and I was like, maybe Monday's bearish, then maybe Tuesday we start to rise, and then into Wednesday, is where, bullish, catalyzing happens. But what I failed to think about was, I think that the fact that the CPI data was telegraphed Friday, we didn't have a dump over the weekend, and we're expecting good data on Wednesday. Why would the market dump on a Monday? So that my thesis was a little bit wrong, and I'm having to readapt in real time. So fortunately, I was not short this morning. I just walked away from my trades. And then taking kind of in CJ's context, if we kind of continue to think about it, if today, Tuesday, and into Wednesday is gradual bullishness followed by a pop, then that PPI data would be the pullback. And then maybe we're still sitting in this massive range. And I'm talking to you guys on Thursday, and ETH is 1880 and Bitcoin is 23 flat. So, or 30 flat, I should say. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about things right now, because I'm still seeing FOMC on the 26th, and I'm saying, why the F would anything make a new high heading into a likely 25 basis point hike, or at least a confirmed new high? So that's where I'm at for the market. So I think the bullishness today was just based on expectations of a good Wednesday. And then after that Wednesday is over, I'm kind of in camp CJ, where someone's going to inject a little bit of doom and gloom into the market pre-FOMC. So that's my thesis. But what do you think about that, Monty?
Yeah, no, I think that you're spot on, and Camp CJ is a good place to be.
Historically, I would argue against that.
No, that's not true.
Camp CJ. All right, CJ, what do you got? What do you got for us on the charts?
Can you just bring up Lido one day?
Yeah. What is your
This is why I had to leave the screen. I needed to buy some when it was breaking out, and just put the stop right at today's low.
Well, thanks for the update, bro. See, poor Monty and I are sitting on stream, singing out our heartstrings, and CJ's over there 100x leveraging shitcoin.
Fill before shill, always.
All right, is this good, CJ? You want me to get rid of these indicators on the bottom?
Hey, man, yeah, I just wanted people to see the candlestick chart. It's right at support. It's reclaimed that support level. Lido is one of those that I'm very long-term bullish on. I think they've got exactly 20% of all staked ETH is in staked Lido Ether. I think ultimately, I've probably made this spiel before, but I think that traditional financial players or like retail, they're like, if they're going to buy a product in 2024, or if they're going to invest in something in 2024, 2025, it'll probably be on ramps like Coinbase, for instance, or venues for institutional staking derivatives. I think staking is going to become a huge part of institutional like yield. So for instance, if you were to think about like an ETF operator, if you were operating like an Ethereum ETF and you needed to go get like staked Lido Ether or something of that sort, you have a management fee of not that much and like 1%, but let's assume ETH yield is like 3%, and on the low spectrum. So I think there's going to be a lot of desire to open up an Ethereum ETF, as well as like maybe even an Ethereum ETF that pays dividends because of the staking component. But I think as institutions get more and more comfortable with staking Ether, Lido is just going to be even more and more important, and could get a really, really nice narrative going for it, as it already has. So just taking a shot on that one there.
Now, I did see something interesting. Can I pull up the market cap? Yeah, I can pull up the market cap. This should, yeah. So I think the market cap, like if we do, can I do a market cap LDO price chart? I should be able to. What the heck? You guys see me clicking that? It's not working. Huh. It was interesting that I think the market cap is rising more so than the prices, just because of, people, offloading supply. So I found that interesting, but I don't think it's going to have too much impact, especially if we head into a bull market. But the one question I want to ask you, CJ, is what's your target if you're kind of getting along around like $1.90, $1.92?
My target is like $8 for Lido.
Well, I mean, you just entered. You said you
in
entered
the short term. In the short term, I don't have a target. I just gonna buy it.
Well, did you buy spot or did you leverage long?
I would look like I want to continue to accumulate spot, but just as of now, because the risk was very clearly defined, I did a 5x levered perp with a small amount of capital. I would not like invest and use leverage. Alts already have high enough beta as it is. You don't even need it.
So are you looking for like $2, or are you looking for this high up here, like 225?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? Well, hopefully it goes up there. I don't like have a target necessarily. It's mainly, okay, I'll be looking at like, short liquidations, things of that sort. Yeah, sorry, I don't have like a technical target. Obviously,
no worries. I'm just thinking about the people following along who are like, "Ooh, LDO looks good. I wonder what CJ's thinking." So this is like where I would think is probably $2 or 225 would be my initial targets. But I just wanted to, gauge your thoughts. So,
I mean, yeah, you got to ride the winners, right? So that's one of the most important things that I always like to emphasize. But yeah, just looking for a small interim pump here. We'll see what happens.
All righty. Any equities charts that are catching your eye other than coin, CJ? I know we kind of went over S&P 500. I've got the futures up, so I don't track SPY. I track the futures because it's 24 hours. But I will say, watching crypto get a bit of a jump and seeing this stall at resistance doesn't give me, a ton of confidence in terms of a crypto rally in the short term. But I still think that, if we can, stay above this range, which we were sitting in for days, that we do have a chance to head up to this range up here, which would be above 1900. So, and then if we kind of bring it to the Bitcoin chart, let's go full circle, so we're not leaving anybody hanging. Doesn't look like a bad daily, I'll tell you that. Let's go back to the hour. So yeah, so Bitcoin is still sitting in this range. We just talked about ETH potentially outperforming Bitcoin in the near term, meaning like a couple of days. So Bitcoin's still sitting in this range that I just circled for ETH. This is the range for ETH. It's above the high. Bitcoin is just above the high by a couple of dollars. So something to watch out for there if you are bullish. But although we're not extremely correlated, I will say if the most bullish set of stocks are stalling, as we head into CPI FOMC, it certainly is going to give me a bit of a pause in terms of getting too long. But we could certainly still break this and head higher into today's session. So, but CJ, anything catching your eye on SPY, Qs, futures charts, anything?
I had mentioned this at the start of the show that positioning is just really neutral. So in fact, it's also like shifting towards people actually getting net long. So from my perspective in my system, like there's no reason for me to be long NASDAQ up here. Being said, crypto is still moving fast in the short term. And like, I try as little as possible to like argue with the market or like predict what the market is going to do. Like price is going up. Price went up earlier this morning. Chris makes a good point in chat. ETH and BTC getting some wind behind their sails since the start of the show. The market kind of told me to buy in the last, or at least gave me a nice position for defined risk in Lido. So, I try not to like predict those things, kind of just react to like what we're seeing today, for instance.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
well, go ahead, Monty.
All I got to say is like, although some of the tech names are definitely stalling today, like as evident from my Q's watch list here, they're coming back. They're coming back slowly but surely. But the crypto related equities, particularly the miners, look at these moves that Mara and Riot are making today.
What was there's a wolf? I think there's a wolf one that just went absolutely haywire. Someone sent it to me. Terra
look
Wolf.
at this. This is something that I don't think I've ever seen. They're almost trading at the exact same price. And they're almost up the exact same amount today. Very interesting. Riot is definitely the outperformer in this instance. And in terms of like market cap is gaining more.
Check out the wolf chart. It's WULF. Looks very similar to Riot.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. I mean, that is a
Insane.
very, very strong uptrend. And
didn't we talk about the miners on here? Didn't someone ask us a couple of weeks ago whether like what we were looking for in terms of crypto stocks?
Yeah.
So we talked about that.
Yeah, someone did ask that. And, for me, one thing that I had mentioned was this $15 breakout level for Mara. Clearly, this level's been breached. And we got exactly what we were kind of hoping for, was like this retest of this level as support before a move higher. And this was a tough one to hold on to if you were in this trade, because, this is kind of a shooting star candle at the top of an uptrend. But of course, today, it's paying dividends. And, I think that this thing continues to run up and we see it reach the $18 level. So I don't think it's done yet at all. I think that, based on what we're seeing so far to start the week, we could see some significant momentum leading into this earnings. And earnings for Mara is on Wednesday, August 9th. I wouldn't want to be holding through earnings just because Bitcoin's been performing well, but I think we're going to see people try and front run the earnings because Bitcoin's been performing well. And that may be a reason why we're seeing these stocks up so much today, is people expecting these earnings reports to be positive. And we've seen it so many times, right? Where, you get to the earnings report, and then the numbers come in, even if they are positive, the majority of the positive price action has already happened, as people have kind of been aware that those numbers were going to be positive. And as a result, they take profit on the day that those numbers can come out. So it's kind of a buy the rumors, sell the news, buy the, potential beating of the profits and sell the actual numbers themselves. I think that is the way to go with the miners.
I agree with Monty. I don't really have too much of a technical thesis, or even like this is not backed by numbers and science, but just the way that I'm looking at things and thinking about them heading into the Q3 and Q4 is I have a feeling that Q3 is going to be mostly choppy and flat. Like maybe we get to 31, 32K for Bitcoin. But I think that we're not going to have too much of a massive change by the end of August or beginning of September to where we are right now. And I think that's due to this uncertainty around more rate hikes and the Fed being pleased with the data. And I think a lot of the bullishness that we've had is likely to reach kind of at least some sort of cap temporarily, meaning everybody's maybe taking some profits off, putting money on the exchanges, waiting for a dip, something like that to occur. And then I think by the time Q4 rolls around, we're going to understand that there's likely no more hikes. Eventually the Fed's thinking about either pausing or retracting hikes, et cetera. So I think that by the time we get to October, November, December, we're going to have a really good outlook for what 2024 will bring. And then hopefully that brings with it just general winds of change as, everybody's wrapping up the fiscal year and getting ready for a new one. So that's kind of, that's 6 months of what I think is going to happen. But if you listen to me in January and February, I was saying we were likely going to be bullish into Q3 and have a pullback Q3 and then continuation likely around Q4 or Q1 2024. So far, I've been generally correct. So hoping that continues, but that's just how I'm kind of thinking about macro thesis for the next 6 months. So with that being said, we're definitely going to go ahead and close it up. If anybody has some stocks or crypto suggestions, please throw it in chat. But based on what I said, Monty, CJ, any comments about forward outlook? Are you guys playing the crystal ball games? Or are you guys just kind of waiting to see how it impacts your P&L?
I do actually have a crystal ball. We should ask it next show.
Is it the magic conch from SpongeBob?
No, it's a literal crystal
really?
ball. Monty, you remember when I got that?
Anyway. Yes, I do. How's the P&L been with that?
You have a wizard robe too?
He's got a Caesar's Palace robe.
Okay, sorry.
He wears the kimono with the crystal ball is what he does.
We need you coming on here one episode with the Caesar's Palace robe with the crystal ball and making a prediction.
All right, here we go. Lido, last time under $2. Let's get it.
All right, you
Lido last time under $2. Hold on, let's pull the chart up. Let's bring everybody back to envision CJ getting rich. All right, so we're on the 1 hour. Let's check out the 1 week. It doesn't look, in terms of market structure, this is actually a masterclass in market structure, just to go ahead and point out to you. We've all seen this formation on every single time frame, no matter how long you've been a trader. Low, higher low, higher low. Technically a lower high, but, and then forming a higher high. So basically it's just ping-ponging back and forth. And what you would expect is, as CJ is kind of implying, it breaks this high, forms a high up here, and then eventually probably runs back here and then does it all over again heading into 2024. That seems to be what CJ is expecting, correct?
No, just straight to $8. That's
just no dip. Hold on, we gotta get $8 in here. I gotta figure that one out.
TradingView took the log charts out or something. Do they still? You have to manually.
They have log. I think I gotta I can do it right here.
Now I am
log,
just
there you go.
kidding about but I do think in the short term daily time frame, like I did take a long. I like it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
From $2 to $8 is 300%. So.
You'd never hold it that long, though. Just be honest with yourself.
Well,
you'd never.
I mean, starting 2024, if we get a dip pre-2024 and I get buys that are either at this price or lower, then I'll probably hold into 2024, 2025. Because I mean, we're traders at heart, but we all know that if we hold a stack for 2 years in a bull market, that's the easiest way to win.
Trading is for like income, or if you run a fund and you have a lot of capital to draw from, which you can make 15 to 20% reliably. Like that's trading. That's something you typically don't get rich from, or the vast majority of people don't get rich from. You get rich in crypto from holding shit that just goes up like 1,000% or something. What I look to hold for 2024 is just like simply Coin and Lido. Maybe we'll come across another that I like.
Oh, we'll be talking about Pepe next run, because the one mistake that I made in 2016 to 2022 was laughing at all of my friends who only bought Doge throughout all of the crypto dips, and now laugh at me from their Solana phones in Bali.
Think about how many times you open Twitter a day and see Pepe relative to how many times you see Dogecoin per day. I mean, it's got to be at least 2x more. Therefore, Pepe should be 2x more than Doge in market cap. It makes perfect sense.
I don't know if I'm buying Pepe here, but I will definitely be paying very close attention to it over the next 6 months. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think Pepe's something you need to like accumulate. Just wait till it starts going up and ape it. And then usually if there's any retail tailwind behind it, then, you do quite well. All right. What's up with Alibaba here? I've seen HSI has been doing pretty poorly over the past couple of weeks, Hang Seng Index. In terms of Alibaba, what are you thinking here, Nick?
We had Keith suggested. Right? We had Keith suggested, so I don't want to leave him hanging. But I mean, if I'm just quickly drawing my ranges here, so it's currently stuck in the range that it was stuck in back from 14 all the way to 17. So it's stuck in its 3-year range right after it started trading on the New York Stock Exchange. And in my opinion, I mean, we're looking at the weekly, so there could be some different kind of trades that you play it, in between this range. Let's go ahead and get this high situated. So what I would do, I mean, I definitely think that, you've got kind of a larger inverse head and shoulders here. And then you've got kind of a mini inverse head and shoulders. If we keep looking down, it's a lot uglier, the reason I really don't like this too much is because of the continual lower highs. Those always scare me. So what I would do is, the only way I would buy is probably a break of this 95 level, which is the high from back in early June. If it breaks and holds that, I would probably trade it up to this 109 to 120 level. And that's probably where I would think about exiting some of that trade, because just in that same coin situation, this is when you would expect it to start selling off. Or obviously, if it breaks above the 200 estimated 200 moving average, then you would continue to trade it higher. So above 95, I'm trading it up to 110. If it gets rejected here, then I think it's likely to re-meet these lows down here at 58. And that's what I'm thinking. So I wouldn't, it's not an anything to me yet, because it's just trading in this little gross weekly range, in my opinion. What are you guys thinking?
I mean, that weekly chart looks like a crypto chart of a dead old coin.
I can go to 3-day.
I
doesn't look much prettier.
I'm just reluctant to trade anything in China right now. I mean, Alibaba as a company, like, yeah, sure. Like you pointed out, they're at the same price they're at, what, 3 years ago? I mean, that's
same price as, what is this, 2016?
Oh my God. So 7 years ago, that is, I mean, the company has grown significantly since then. And, there have been sanctions put on against them, and the Chinese government doesn't necessarily like the fact that they are or were as powerful as they were. And essentially they kind of crushed them. So
they literally put their CEO, what did they do to Jack Ma again?
Dude, we'll never find out, but the rumor was concentration camps or prison vacation, whatever you want to call it.
All right, so let's just focus less on China until the HSI starts going up again. There's probably better stuff you could trade in the short run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
I would
least in a
set,
charting perspective.
if you really feel the need to trade it, I'd set an alert at 95. And if, we do have some buy volume down here, which is certainly what you want to see, but there's been no follow through on buy spikes, or very little follow through on buy spikes. So that's also another thing to watch out for. So, set an alert for 95. Above 95, I'm trading it up to 110. Rejection at the 120 level, it's going to get sent back down to 58, in my opinion. And then if it holds here, maybe generational long opportunity into 2024. Because if it does something like this, and then this is like early 2024, maybe a little dipperoo.
China becomes capitalist.
That's plausible. That is plausible. Okay, so I think we covered pretty much everything. We're inching on a full hour, so I hope everybody got some goodies and some details out of the session today. We'll of course be back on Thursday, so we'll have CPI Wednesday, and then we'll have PPI Thursday morning, and then we'll come back to everyone on Thursday afternoon to kind of break it all down and figure out what we're seeing over the weekend and into next week. And then, of course, remember the 26th, is FOMC day. So we are still staring down a big, three-headed monster that we still fully don't understand. So just something to be, cautious of if you are thinking that you want to get very long heading into the end of July. So with that being said, CJ, Monty, any exit wise words or ideas?
No, just excited to be part of the trade the chain team, and CJ and I are going to be doing a show. Look out for an email. If you are a member of Trade the Chain, you'll get an email about our show. We'll be doing it daily, just like we used to do over at Mark Rebellion. It'll be every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, except Wednesdays. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Look out for an email for that. But yeah, that's all I got. Hope you guys have a great week.
Yeah, a lot of big things coming. Like we said in the beginning, 14-day free trial at tradethechain.com. We'll have basically 2 media shows a week. Certain media shows will be specifically for members only to request charts, certain ideas, thoughts, and knowledge share. And then, we'll be also, we send out our email content multiple times a day as well. CJ and Monty are going to be much more involved. We're going to be making trade calls, trade ideas, thinking through how we're approaching the market, macro, crypto, trade buy, so we'll be encompassing everything. We will not just be kind of a crypto focus anymore. You will be able to come to Trade the Chain and get, pretty much everything you want from a full 360-degree markets perspective. So we're very excited to have them join the fold, and all of that new content will start tomorrow. So if you sign up today, you'll still be at ground zero for all of the new beautiful stuff coming in. So with that being said, good luck and happy trading. See everybody on Thursday.